I'm Jeff Fritz with SoundStage.com, and I'm joined today by Matt Reilly. He is the head of business development for UK-based Cambridge Audio. Matt, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jeff?
I'm good, and I'm glad you joined me today because I just got in the mail a brand new Cambridge Audio MXN10 network player, and we
That's
are going to
exciting.
chat about it today. So the first question that I have for you is tell us exactly what that is. You know, people hear the term network player, so they assume that it connects to the network, but what exactly does this thing, what exactly is a network player in this context?
Yeah, well, you just defined it. It is a device that sits on your Wi-Fi network, your home network, whatever you're using. But it's a streamer at heart. So you get to stream all of your digital content, whether that's through Tidal, Spotify, Qobuz. If you're using a UPnP player, maybe you've got a NAS drive with all your digital downloads stored on there. You can access that. It's also a Roon ready device for anybody that's using Roon for their file management, if you will. It can also do MQA pass through. So if you go into a really nice DAC into your main system, it does that as well.
Okay. So tell us about a little bit about the connectivity options because I think,
Yeah.
you know, people are going to want to know how does this thing interface with their system? And, you know, one of the things that I like about it when I saw the announcement come out is that it has both digital outputs and analog outputs, meaning that it does have a built-in DAC. So I'm
Correct.
not trying to steal your thunder there, but tell us a little bit about the connectivity and, you know, how this thing can fit into an audio system.
Absolutely. So it has an ESS Sabre DAC in it. Like as you just mentioned, it's got analog out, it's got digital out. So you've got two ways of using it. And one of the things we've noticed, whether it's talking to our listeners, our customers, you know, even within the company, our own systems, like today, I've got a pretty simple system behind me. I've got an old vintage Cambridge amp that's about 15 years old. And this allows you to take this unit and plug it into that at an affordable price point and bring, you know, the streaming world at your fingertips. And with that, you get to use our fourth generation Stream Magic app. So that gives you access to over 20,000 internet radio stations, a wonderful interface that's easy to control. You can incorporate Tidal into it, Qobuz, Deezer, all controlled through our app. At the same time, like I mentioned, but you can also use Room too. It also has AirPlay 2, Chromecast, and Bluetooth. So if anybody comes over, want them to connect easily, you can do it those ways too.
You know, one of the and you just touched on it with the vintage system, but
Yeah.
you know, one of the components that's so big these days, and I know you guys are heavily into these as well, but just the audiophile world in general is huge into the integrated amplifier.
Yep.
And you know, we always get the question, you know, from readers, from viewers, should I get the integrated amplifier with the DAC or should I get it without? And everyone has an opinion. And at the end of the day, you know, they're both right
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
you know, there's certain applications where having the DAC built in is great, you know, having it analog only so you can upgrade the DAC. What I like about the MXN10 is that it can interface with either integrated amplifier with the DAC, without a DAC. And then you brought up the vintage aspect too, you know, classic receivers, integrated amplifiers, you know, that's huge these days. You know,
Yeah.
people are really looking for that vintage gear, and this is a way to bring it right up to, you know, the modern day with the MXN10. So I really like that application. Are you guys seeing that with was that part of the intended customer base with the integrated
Absolutely.
amplifier?
100%. It's what I love about it is it's a utility piece. It's a concentrated, dedicated streamer on its own that stands on its own from a performance aspect. At the same time, you get that high end performance, and also it's a bit of a Swiss Army knife because both those outputs, the analog and the digital, they're both live. So if you're, you know, an audiophile that has two different systems, you can now do one analog out to one of your systems and digital out to say maybe your main piece of kit and have them both live at the same time. So you get to have the best of both worlds with that. And it's a Sabre DAC in there as well. So it's it's pretty solid on its own right. But what I like to do, if you don't mind, you can see right behind me here, I've got our MXN plugged right into our DAC Magic 200, which has its own headphone amp section. My pals over at Audeze let me have a pair of the LCD-X's, which are absolutely stunning. So I get to use that as my desk-by system.
Oh, that's nice. No, that looks really nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the price point, because
Yeah.
that's another thing that's super attractive about this product. I'm going to let you go ahead and unveil for people that don't know, what is the price of the MXN10?
So it's $499.
So $499 in US dollars.
Correct.
And and this is another, maybe unintended, maybe intended application. When you're talking about that price point, I know a lot of audiophiles that aren't into super expensive music streamers, music servers. So they end up going the laptop route. You've got a MacBook Air laying around, well, I'll use that. I mean, I've used MacBook Pros, MacBook Airs as music servers for years, but now we're talking about, $500. So you're kind of undercutting, that nicer level laptop range probably by half. So now all of a sudden a network player, music streamer becomes an attractive option from a value standpoint. Talk a little bit about, the price point that you guys were able to hit and what that's going to do for the customer base.
Yeah, it's a great question and a very valid one too. Because I have an old MacBook myself that I use as a server to store my digital files. But the difference is, like, I think you said it, is one's a computer and one's a dedicated device meant for music. MacBooks are great. I have a MacBook. I have a PC. They're everything. They're email, web search. They are built to do everything for everybody, where this is dedicated for music streaming only. So in my mind, it's always going to be a better performing unit. You can just, I encourage you to go out there and A/B it and see what makes sense for you. However, I do have to say there is something, because computers are an everything device, we live on them, right? We do our work there, we do our web searches, we do our entertainment. This takes you out of that sort of headspace and puts you into your dedicated music listening space. And I think that's important. The biggest difference, though, I think the most attractive feature is, though, you get to use our Stream Magic app that is not, built for a laptop or a computer, but is built for our devices, all of our streaming devices. It's award-winning. We've been working on it for 10 years. It's in its 4th generation. It is extremely useful and functional, and we get a lot of good reviews on it. So I think having that access to where you now have this phone that controls this dedicated device for music, which is the idea, better performance for music lovers. And that's what we do. And that's why it's there.
Well, those are some great points. And, the one that you touched on that I had not thought about is, this is an audio component, right? It's not, it gets you away from the computer, which, probably most of us are on our computers too much as is. And it puts you in front of your audio system with an audio component that you can control through your smartphone. So I think that is a great point. And it's something that, particularly if your computer is a dual use component per se, right? You can hook it up to your audio system. You can listen with your computer, but then you need to answer some emails too, right? So now you've got to deal with, bringing it back over to your lap, so to speak. So I do think that this is a great alternative and will be very attractive to people, particularly at the price point. Well, thanks for bringing us up to date on the MXN10. I'm going to put mine that you guys shipped me to try out into the system, my compact reference system, over the weekend. But before we go, Matt, I've got one more question for you. Cambridge Audio, you guys have had, great product rollouts. We've seen some tremendous things from you guys. I want to know what's coming up. What does the rest of 2023 look like? And maybe take us into 2024. What's going on at Cambridge Audio?
Absolutely. Happy to. And thank you for asking. So before I go to that, I do have to mention the MXN has a sibling called the AXN. It is $100 more at $599. It is the exact same unit. All the internals are the same outputs, inputs, DAC. The only difference is that the AXN is a full-size chassis, where the MXN you see behind me is a smaller half-size chassis. So the reason we did that is we have a lot of listeners in our AX range that's going to slot into quite nicely. That's part of their kit. They still want to maintain that aesthetic of a full-size chassis where they have their their AXA amplifier, our AXC CD player, and now an AXN streamer as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so we're excited to have both of those. So for what's coming new, perfect timing. Last night in the UK, we just launched a limited edition black only CX series. So it's going to be available in Europe pretty much right away. We're going to be having it here in the US starting end of May, give or take a little bit. We're excited to have that. So we've had our lunar gray finish, our only finish, for quite a while now. We have a fair amount of listeners that wanted a traditional black unit, and we spiced it up a little bit, and we put our logo in a matte black and the unit's in black. So it's very, very stealthy, very sleek. And frankly, black never goes out of style. So we're happy to have it. Keep in mind, though, it's limited. We only have 1,000 units of each, our CXA 81, CXN V2 streamer, and our CXC transport worldwide. So start talking to your retailers if you want to get one of those.
Great. No, that's terrific. Well, are you guys going to be showing in Munich? Are you guys going to be at the high-end show there?
Absolutely. So we're going to be in Munich. We're going to be at Axpona coming up in April in the Chicago area. And then in the summer, we're going to be at Audio Advice Live out in North Carolina, not too far from your neck of the woods, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely be there. I'm looking forward to that show as well. Well, Matt, that's great. Listen, I really appreciate the update on the MXN10. Like I said, I have one here. Can't wait to hear it. And thank you for the update on Cambridge Audio as well. And we'll be seeing you guys out at those shows that you just mentioned shortly.
Wonderful. Appreciate your time, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Bye-bye.
Take care.